Okay, chapter 2, second half of the show, and this is Jim Turner, kind of a bit of an outlier in this crew of bicycle people, specifically in terms of original roots and everything. Again, another personal aside, but I mean, I knew about Jim Turner long before I became involved with his brother and this little small company called RockShox and everything. But Jim Turner, motocross guy, Canadian national champion, Team Suzuki in 79? 76. Oh, that's right. The earlier RMs by 79, it was a Honda. So anyways, I mean, I would look through Motocross Action magazine. I still remember the picture of him on the start line in Canada and the Suzuki jersey, you know, and I had like no clue who he was. And then again, just coming back to this intersection that Rick and I sort of discovered, Santa Cruz, motorcycles, bicycles, genius, creativity. It's like all these guys we've been talking to today all come from that intersection, that crosswalk of genius, invention, vision, creativity, passion. So Jim Turner, famous motorcycle rider, not a great motorcycle rider, but he was famous. But he was Canadian national champion 2 times, you know, and then three-time national champion.
Snuck one in while you were sleeping.
Yeah. And then again, just part of the connection, KB, Keith Bontrager, you know, this is like, there's this famous photo, you'll see it coming up here, when Keith Bontrager, famous Keith Bontrager Bicycles, was the mechanic for Jim when they went to Europe on the Motocross Fox team on a Honda. And so anyways, again, it's just this intersection that connects us all, that Rick really kind of like started like bubbling in his mind, you know, just like, God, there's this thing we have, this thread, right? Jim Turner. So he's here not because he's a motocross guy and we're going to talk about, you know, him racing in the GPs or anything like that, which we certainly can. But Jim, there's another photo. It's just, again, another connection. In like the mid-'80s, he gets one of the earliest road bikes from Bontrager, and there's the picture of him riding it coming up. And so again, a bicycle guy way back then, comes from this Turner family, which is like this a family of geniuses, like all of them. You know, the brothers are all like, you know, you can talk about it. And of course, Paulie with, you know, RockShox, you know, started RockShox. So why are you here? Let's get to that.
Because you invited me.
Why are you here? Yeah. And the notion that, so you know, you're this famous motorcycle guy, and you know, you talked about working at Ford and everything like that, and then lo and behold, and I'd like you to tell that story, like, you know, you're just working at Ford and doing all this other stuff, but at some point, way early on, way before e-bikes became a thing, you decide, I think was it 95 or something like that? Like when you first had that first idea about an e-bike?
You know what's funny is, you know, remember the connection, Jim McGreen from Prototype.
Yeah.
So he was and he had designed a little add-on motor for an electric bike. He got out of that and got into that. Yeah. And that was my first e-bike I bought when my kids were little. And I started riding that around. And I thought, this is a really neat idea, because I had my kid on a tag-along.
KB.
Yeah.
Turner.
A little different then. All the Turners.
Yeah.
So, you know, I rode that, and then I thought this is really neat as a form of transportation, because I was always bicycle commuting and touring and that. And then I got thinking, well, I could do this. This is really up my wheelhouse of motors, and I was designing semiconductor equipment and motors and all this stuff. I go, this would be pretty easy for me. And with a bicycle background and motorcycle background, I thought, this is good. So I started on that.
And what year was that?
That would be like 95.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And then you said you talked about changing the idea kind of quickly from like hub motor?
Oh, yeah. So my initial idea was a hub motor, because from an engineering standpoint, that was the most efficient means of transferring the power. So I hired a motor designer to do that. And he came back after a couple of iterations. He goes, this is a really stupid idea. And I'm not going to work on it anymore, because it's going to be big and heavy and it's dumb. And I was crushed. I go, oh man, I was going to be the great inventor of this e-bike. And then I was out on a road bike ride one day, and I'm climbing a hill, and it just dawned on me, the bike is the most efficient means of transportation made. Don't mess with that. Do it in parallel. And that's when I came up with the idea of the motor in the bottom bracket, because that utilizes all the efficiencies of the bicycle without trying to bastardize it. Don't mess with something that's good. And so that's where that aha moment came.
There you go. Yeah. And then from there, what was those kind of like the next baby steps that kind of?
Well, I kind of built a very crude prototype. I don't know if there's a picture of it there. And then in like 96 or so, I built this one, which was actually an all-in-one unit, the first motorized bottom bracket.
And we talked about just quickly, then there's also Iacocca had his bike later, even later than yours. And I can't remember.
That was what, the early 2000s,
yeah,
late 90s.
And then GT came out with their version, which came and went really quickly.
Yeah, and then we talked to Iacocca, and he was going to buy the company, I think, in 2000. And then that kind of fell apart at the last minute. He couldn't get any funding. And he was actually using our bike to go to venture capitalists and try and raise money.
So what was it? So where are we at now in terms of? I do at any moment like back then. I mean, you know, because you're still. This is like like Craig with carbon fiber. You're decades before it became a thing.
Yeah.
You know, so steadfast. I mean, what was it? And you told me too. It's like, you know, you said like as a former racer, you know, you have this keen sense of tenacity. Because I'm just like, why are you like, you know?
You mean we like to take abuse?
Just be, yeah. You like to be abused, yeah. But here you are. So you started with that, but then all of a sudden, I mean, this is an incredible piece of machinery here. I mean, it's just amazing. And I visited you in 2015, long ago, when you were kind of still. You were already Optobike and everything. But I mean, this has already come even so much further than then. You know, so sort of what's got you to where you are now with the Optobikes you're selling now?
I just, this passion, I think that everybody spoke about it, and relentlessness to build the best there is. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I think it's an amazing product, and just always trying to think about how it can be better and how it can be better. And that's what I've seen sort of in the industry, that we started things like this long before anyone else, and everyone has kind of learned from that. Like I used to have to fight with a hub motor was better than a mid-drive, you know, and there was this argument, and I was like, no, there isn't an argument, but there's still people, and that kind of dropped by, and so we kind of move ahead. And one of the things now is like with torque, like suddenly with DJI, they've discovered that more torque is better, and we've had 190 Newton meters of torque for 7 years. It wasn't like new to us. We were doing it long ago, and now because it's sort of the mainstream now, they're all looking at it.
Can you just tell us quickly then, like what is Optobike right now? Like what in terms of what the bike is, and a little bit about this, like the company
we're just a small. I do it. My sons have grown up in it. They're the two of them, and now they're the integral part. And we live in a small town in Colorado, and we design these things and we build them one at a time. Part of my thing from racing is when you're a factory rider, your bikes are built just for you. Or that picture of Keith, when Keith built that bike for me, remember? And he built every part on the picture of that bike. I mean, the swing arms, everything. But it was that last 5% or something that made the difference between winning and losing.
This one.
Yeah, Keith built every part, the forks he machined down, and built that swing arm, built the pipe, built everything, and that's another story.
Yeah.
But that would make the difference, and that's what I try and bring, because the sort of mass-produced, you lose that, and I always love that part of it. So we try and do that. We build a bike custom for people, and the thing about an electric bike is it adds a huge, larger level of degrees of freedom about what the bike does. With a regular bicycle, you just have the human. But it's like a motorcycle. That motor adds all these other variables that you tune with, and how do you deliver torque, and how do you do that? That doesn't happen on a regular bicycle. And the frame works differently, the suspension works differently, because it's got a motor, and then you got the interaction of the human with the motor. So it's a lot more complicated. It opens up a huge, broad spectrum of how a bike can be.
Right. It's just interesting just thinking that, you know, the bike that Bontrager built for you, and then Honda, to go to Europe in '79, and then this other photo of you on a bike that Bontrager built for you, your road bike. And just like, again, it's just, again, all the way, the fabric that binds us together, you know? Because you said you were going to go, like, you had an idea to like ride around the world with your wife
Yeah, in 1990, we put everything in storage and took off to ride around the world for a year on there weren't Bontraggers, there were mountain bikes, but yeah.
And then, so the bike now we're looking at, again, what is Optibike is, you're like, what are you selling, what are you making? Even though Nick says we're not here to sell anything.
Well, this is the bike, our current new model
Right.
we're just coming out with. It's the next evolution of bikes.
Yeah. And what are the features? I mean, why should anyone think about an Optibike? What is it you're offering that's different or special about your bike?
Well, we tend to have more power, more torque, more sustained power. We run bigger batteries because one of my big things is I don't want to drive to a trail and then ride. I want to ride to the trail and be able to ride and then ride home. So it's more of like what really works in the real world. And we're different because, again, we're small volume, like a racing team. We build more of an appropriate thing versus a mass-produced product. And so we have other features because of that.
What kind of mileage range?
These are like 100, 150, I think.
Whoa.
Yeah, yesterday how long was our ride yesterday was what? 30, and I used about 30% of the battery, you know, but I was riding with conventional bikes, but
does it weigh 80 pounds?
it weighs more, it's 70 pounds.
Yeah.
And one thing I meant is I learned that the weight of an e-bike is different than the weight of a bicycle because you have a motor, and that changes all the rules because bikes are, like Jim was talking about, efficiency, and all about efficiency, right? Because of the human element. And when you take the e-bike, you kind of have to go, oh wait, none of that stuff matters anymore because it's more about comfort and what people are really doing, durability. So all the rules are kind of turned around. And maybe that's the motocross background. Again, you come in a little bit different thinking about it.
Yeah.
So I approach the bike differently than maybe some of the industry does.
If I could interject, because he sent that bike to me and I've ridden it a few times. Just a little, maybe come back to this, Jim. The 4 different modes, like class 1, class 2, class 3 moto. And then the other thing I would say, with the motocross background, the way this thing handles so neutrally because how he's positioned the weight relative to the suspension and what we would call the spindle, the center point of the bike, it rides like a 25-pound mountain bike.
Nice.
You don't feel the bike underneath you. So you don't feel the weight.
Yeah, and that's the thing is weight can be an advantage, right, on some of the downhill. It's not as good for jumping and popping things, but it can be an advantage of stability. And so with the motor, it doesn't have a detriment going, as Greg would tell you, up the hill, you know. The one thing I noticed on the ride yesterday is in the beginning, I go, these guys are going pretty fast up these hills, you know, and I'm going to have to kind of try. And then at the end, they're all kind of dropping back, you know, and we can go a lot faster. But
So the 4 modes?
Oh, the former. So we've done a lot of the forefront. Like I did the 20 years ago. In 2020, I had patents issued on like the battery in the frame and the motorized bottom bracket, automatic shifting, the whole thing. I patented like everything kind of is done today, and they expired. And so one of the things we're always looking at, well, what makes a better thing? And we came up with this display called the multi-mode because e-bikes have this class 1, 2, 3. Which I think is a real impediment because if you want to ride to the trail, you don't want to ride at 20 miles an hour.
Right.
So we made this display that we have, you can click 1, 2, 3 or moto mode, which is a real high power. It's like a 1700 watts. So if you get to a forest service road or where motorcycles could ride, you can do all these different features. So it amplifies where you can use a bike. You're not just limited. Because one of my big things is, I think everyone shares, is bikes are neat, and how do you do it as an alternative car, not just for transportation? So if you can ride to the trailhead and then ride back, you've done something. I think it's a better experience for people as well as environmentally.
Yeah, leave the truck in the driveway.
Yeah, instead of, whereas other people, they go, well, I drove to the trailhead because I can't ride to the trailhead and I have no battery left.
Sucks. Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of people are heavier and stuff like this, and that's why we have more power or more battery because you know, they're not all little racer, you know, like fit, super fit.
12 grand or something?
Yeah, they're 12 to 15.
Yeah.
So it must be kind of a weird to ask this question because I mean you were at the forefront and originated much of this stuff. But in terms of like e-bikes, what have you seen like the biggest changes in terms of e-bike technology where now versus any time before? I mean, is there anything out there?
Egotistical, like they've, the mass production and all the players have come in, but the technology that this motor had, this was more powerful than most of the bikes today and things like that. So they've come along and added a lot of technology around it. But we were doing most of that, our bikes 20 years ago had the performance and capabilities or more than they have today. It's like we watch them trying to kind of come along, but you go, why don't you just jump? But there's a ceiling, just like in a motorcycle with the laws of what you can do.
Yeah.
And so there's a ceiling and everybody's getting tighter on that. So what we really try and offer is a different mode as a company than mass-produced bikes can give you.
Yeah. I think just quickly then, one of the things that kind of is just as of late noticed this week, you're getting a bike for Jeremiah Bishop to race in the e-bike race this weekend. And it just brings me back to what, for a lot of us here, we all race motorcycles, whether it's racing motorcycles or like Gentes racing bicycles specifically, but it's just like, to me, like I still haven't figured out what it is, but there's something that's so bitchin', drives my girlfriend crazy. Like when I'm driving on the freeway, she's like, I'll be passing them. I'm like, yeah, I passed that guy. She's like, it's not a race. I'm like, no, it is. It's like because it's like it's always a race.
Life's a race.
Yeah,
Life's a race.
I mean, it's still competition. And there's like this celebrated champion, and you have this great history. So I mean, I don't know. It just kind of, and not that you're going to start becoming a racing team and all that stuff, but I guess I'm trying to speak to is now you have Jeremiah on your bike this week, and I know you got excited about thinking about that, and I started telling you about when Jeremiah was at the Trek team, with me and stuff. But there's something about, and again with Gentes, and everybody, it's just like this. Like there's this innate thing about the intensity, the tenacity, and I know you spoke a little bit more to it about in terms of like I'm still a racer at heart.
Well, that's one of the things that's been frustrating. I listen to these guys talk about going to the Tour de France and winning the Tour de France. And when I started e-bikes, I go, there's no e-bike racing. And there still really isn't any e-bike racing. So that's that part of me that I would love to go out and put my bike out there and have it win, because that's that competitive,
Yeah.
And so this is why it's exciting. Wow, because the e-bike hasn't ever taken off. So you never know.
I got a feeling it might happen this weekend.
Yeah, but that gives you the chance to, like when you win the Tour de France, you go, I'm the best. And they're talking about how they just dreamed of doing that.
Yeah.
And we haven't had that opportunity in e-bike racing. And so maybe if that happens, then, we divert into that, because our bikes aren't really optimized for racing. We'd probably build a different one if it was purely racing. And it'd be really exciting if that happened, because that brings up that gotta win.
Yeah.
And the fire in you just gotta win. It's inbred in you as a racer. You're never good enough. You never quit.
Yeah.
That was that thing about motocross, is you never quit. You never quit.
Here. Yeah. So you went from here, this RM, air cooled, 9 inches of travel, 10 inches of travel maybe. Then you went to KB's GP Honda, 13.5 inches of travel. And then, you can see where we're at now, right? Single shocks, water cooling. I mean, pretty stinking crazy. As far along as the e-bike is, in terms of your bike specifically, maybe industry-wide, do you see that you're a smart guy, do you see any, like 5 years from now, 10 years, there's going to be like the next evolution, the next step in terms of e-bikes or, specifically? Is there still something out there?
Well, those regulations really hold it back. And so everyone's getting about that, and they're learning. It's just like carbon fiber frames. They're learning how to do it better and better and better, and all that technology that batteries. I mean, we were the first battery company in the world to have a lithium-ion battery, and that was 2008. We built those in Boulder, and nobody else had them for years. And we had a bigger battery than now has mass-produced.
Yeah.
They were bigger sized lithiums, and we were doing that then. So everyone's learning how to do that, and the technology is coming up, and stuff we had to build ourselves. We used to build our own controllers, everything we built, because nobody made it back then. So there's just a lot of impetus, and so it's getting better and better and better.
Yeah.
You go to the motocross analogy, like a motocross bike. they're all the same, but every year they're innovating, but it's very slight.
Yeah.
The difference, you're talking 5% maybe.
Yeah. It's just so interesting hearing that apart. Everything you were doing in your element, and all I'm thinking about is Yentis telling a story about how he was like the same with his helmet.
Yeah.
You couldn't think of two products more completely opposite of each other. This piece of foam and then this complicated piece of everything. And yet both of you guys are like systematically going through the same process of just like building your own and just, with a vision. And again, that's what this is really all of a celebration between all of you four guys is just, again, that level of vision, creativity, tenacity. And it's really the spirit of which I think combines or connects all of us, at some degree or another, just especially as fans of of what you guys have done. So thanks go ahead.
Oh, I just say we all share, right, is we're all doing it
Yeah.
too. It's not a corporate thing. Like you ride it and that's in your mind. We all share that.
Yeah.
And that's, I think the evolution goes faster in the innovation because, they all talked about, they're out riding it, thinking about that. I'm out riding this, and every time I go riding, I come up with a new design, and because
Yeah.
you're
doing it.
Yeah, you're doing it versus a corporate thing where you're not doing it. The leaders.
Classic story. Well, thank you very much for coming. It's awesome, and thank you for contributing to this. So don't go anywhere. Is there any questions out there? Does anyone have questions for OG of the e-bike world? All good? Oh, there's one.
Quick question. Are you looking at any bikes that require motorcycle license plates? That classification that's above into the scooter and motorized cycle?
I try and stay away from that, just the regulatory thing. It takes you into you have to be certified as a motorcycle manufacturer. And so it would take you into a different level of stuff. And I think the e-bike is neat because it doesn't require any of that thing. And like our multi-mode display where you can go off-road and still ride that, but you can still be legal on the road without getting into that. I think it's a dividing line you get into. And we looked at doing like mini motocross bikes, the Sutton types a couple of years back. And I mean, I was going to build a motocross bike 20 years ago too. And you probably understand the lack of time and you have a lot of visions. But that's why we've kind of stayed away from that because it's a completely different animal.
I'd like to encourage you because I think it's a great story. First off, we do have the Q&A where if you have a question, we'll bring the four of them back together. This has been awesome. We're running extra long, which means it's working. But I want you to talk a little bit about the Ford experience, kind of the short story about, and the best anecdote of that for me is when you told the computer beings in a Cray computer that you could walk inside the computer and they analyzed your electronic shock valve design and you told them the data that came out of the computer was wrong. So could you please?
Yeah. I just briefly talked about when you do it, it's different, the seat of the pants. And so when I went to Ford to work on electronic shocks, and and they said to me, I had a design I want, and they said, well, you need to verify the design before you build a car. And so they said, go over to scientific research, and they had these PhD guys there, and they said, work with them to develop a formula that'll run on the Cray computer to analyze the shock. You mentioned Bernoulli's equation. We were using that a lot. Jim was. Yeah, and so went over there, worked all the equations out, and they, back then you had to wait a month to get on the Cray, and so a while later they called me back. We got the solution. I walked over there, and they showed it to me. I go, it's wrong. There's no way my shock works like that. I said, I'm done, and I went back to my office. My manager called me, and he says, you insulted the scientific community. These guys, they're all PhDs, and I go, they're wrong. They're just wrong. And he goes, how do you don't know that? And I go, it's wrong. And he goes, yeah. So, a month later, I get a call, and they call me, and they said, hey, we redid those calculations, and we found out we had some math issues, and we ran that, and it's exactly the way you said it would be. And we want to know how you knew that. And I'm like, because you just feel it. racing motocross and you're hitting bumps and you're thinking about how that valve would work. And I used to tune suspension at Fox after, and develop suspension. And you just go, that's not the way it would work. And that's kind of that kinesthetic experience that builds a better product.
What word? Kinesthetic?
Kinesthetic.
Oh, kinesthetic.
Of feeling it.
Yeah.
It's a whole body experience riding a bike. Everybody knows that. It's not a mental thing. Yeah. And every little impact it gets you, you're going, well, why that? And so that's carried me through on these bikes because I ride them, and then you come back and being able to have the sort of resources and to think about a solution, and that's, I think, builds a better bike. And
so what happened with your design, this AirShock design?
It wasn't air, it was electronic.
Oh.
I went on to build it. They let me build it.
Okay.
But then I left Ford because they said, well, we're halfway through. They go, we're going to send it to Japan, the racer again. And I said, well, I'm leaving then, because if you don't want to compete, I compete to win. With product development, to me, is you had to build the best shock in the world, or you're not going to, why waste your time? And so I left Ford then.
Just real quickly, I was just thinking about, because I know, again, the Turner family lore, you guys are all these fucking genius guys. Like, what was it like at a kitchen table or dinner time table with you guys? Like, between your brothers are all smart, your dad, I mean.
We didn't talk. Back when we were kids, we got into moto, Well, we couldn't even have on a bicycle. My dad said they're too dangerous.
What?
And suddenly at like 13, my brother was 13, he goes, I want to buy a mini bike, and I don't have enough money. You want to buy half of it? And I go, oh, okay. I had no interest in motorcycles. And I just started riding that, and then in 3 years, we're all motorcycles everywhere and racing, and it changed. But there was no talk of innovation at all. We were just kids.
So it just all came after that?
We were just hammering away and digging holes and making jumps. We were making stuff all the time, and soapbox cars and stuff. But it wasn't like any nerding out on that stuff. I don't think any of us knew what we were going to do. And then once you're in your moto, that's all we talked about is, at
what
the
town
table.
did you grow up in?
70s.
No, what town?
Oh, I arrived in the city.
Oh, really?
With Rick.
The RWC.
Anyways, thanks for joining us and being part of our bicycle world, because you're as much really a part of it as any of us are, and we really appreciate
Santa
it.
Cruz.
And Santa Cruz too. Thank you very much.